Are you ready for a once-in-a-lifetime railway journey across Australia? Join me as our train traverses the longest straight stretch of railway in the world. Take a look inside single and twin sleeper cabins. Enjoy sumptuous 3-course meals and an extensive wine list. Watch sunrise over the desert and discover the tours included as part of the trip. We'll explore the onboard lounges, encounter a broken track in Adelaide that will delay our journey, and have a chat with the train manager. So hop aboard for an epic transcontinental journey. This is the Indian Pacific. Here I am at one of the world's most famous beaches, Bondi, on the Pacific Ocean. And today we're going to be taking an epic journey across Australia all the way to the Indian Ocean. It's a 4-day, 3-night, all-inclusive journey on the Indian Pacific. Come along and find out why it's considered one of the world's great railway journeys. The Indian Pacific starts its westbound journey from Australia's largest and busiest railway station, Central. The main station building dates from 1906. The sandstone structure is the third building to serve as Sydney Terminal. About 250,000 passengers pass through Central Station each day, with numerous suburban lines running through the station. However, the station has 12 terminating platforms on its northwest side. This section of the station is known as Sydney Terminal and is primarily used by intercity, regional and interstate services, including the Indian Pacific. This part of the station is called the Grand Concourse. Let's take a look at today's schedule. Gold class passengers check in here. Large bags need to be checked through to your destination because they won't fit in the cabin. The staff will also take your cabin bag and pop it in your cabin ready for departure. You'll be given a boarding card with your boarding time, carriage number and cabin number. The Indian Pacific is far too long for the platforms here at Central, so the train will be spread over 3 platforms. It's not here yet. The vast majority of passengers travel in Gold class, but there's also a more premium class, Platinum, which has its own check-in area. Once you're checked in, you can visit this cafe, which is reserved exclusively for Indian Pacific passengers. Light refreshments and drinks are available. All are complimentary. There's also a range of hot snacks, salads, wraps and sandwiches. There's also entertainment. The inbound service from Adelaide is running late, I believe because of a passenger with a medical issue. Time to take a look at the route. The first part of the journey to Adelaide is scheduled to take about 25 hours. After an off-train experience in Adelaide, including dinner, we'll head across the great expanse of the Nullarbor, reaching the West Australian capital Perth just under 2 days later. In good news, our train has arrived. Well, some of it. The carriages have to be shunted across the 3 platforms. Today's train has 33 carriages and is about 830 metres long. The longest platform here at Central, Platform 1, is 372 metres long. On this first part of the journey, we'll be hauled by 2 NR class locos. 2 locos are needed to tackle the gradients over the Blue Mountains. It'll still be a while before we board because the cabins need to be cleaned and the train re-provisioned. Here's the second part of the train that will be pushed into Platform 2. This is a baggage van where checked luggage is stored. You might be able to tell it's lightly raining today. The stainless steel carriages used on the Indian Pacific were built for the Commonwealth Railways, initially for use on the Trans-Australian between Port Pirie in South Australia and Kalgoorlie in Western Australia. Additional carriages of the same type were built for use on the Indian Pacific when it began in 1970. The carriages have been extensively refurbished since then. And here's the third and final portion of the train being brought into Platform 3. As you can see, it's quite an involved process. There are 4 NR class locos here to facilitate this. The carriages are topped up with water.
The train is here. The Indian Pacific, or the IP as we call it, is ready to go. We're going to board you, as I said, by platform. And the lucky first platform is platform number 2.
My section is second to board.
Platform 1. If you have platform 1 on your lanyard, you walk out the door, you're heading towards platform 1.
The crew check off passengers as they board. Hi.
Hello.
There are 16 cabins in this Gold class single carriage. I'm in cabin 3. The crew have already placed my cabin bag here. Hello and welcome aboard the Indian Pacific in my single cabin. If you've seen my Great Southern video, it's the same cabin, but if you haven't, let's take a quick look around. So obviously I've got a seat here, it's very comfortable, and this converts into a bed at night, which is something the staff will do while you're having dinner or whatever time you'd like. I've got a little table, obviously folds out the way when the bed is made. You also get some reading materials, including the list of tours that you can take. The options are in Broken Hill and Adelaide. The other ones are more standard, I guess. You also get this, which lists your times for dining. So you have set times for dinner, breakfast is flexible, set time for lunch, and so on. A bottle of water came in the room, not branded, unlike previous trains I've been on with them. We've got obviously a nice window here. We can lower the blinds here. We've got a cupboard. You've got some racks so you can hang your jacket and whatnot up here. Get it out of the way. There's a call bell here if you need the staff for any reason. We've got lights, an overhead light, and I think a night light, a power point. There's also a little drawer here so you could stick your phone there, etc. for charging. And a little cupboard down here where you can stick some other stuff just to get it out the way. There is a little bit of space under this, I guess, bench seat slash footrest. So yeah, you can stick a cabin size bag or maybe a little bit bigger under there so it's out the way. And hello, this is not the bathroom, but it comes with a little basin so you can freshen up, wash your hands, and we've got these toiletries. They're the standard ones you get on all these trains. Obviously basin, water, hand towel and so on. There's two toilets in this carriage. There's no en-suites in the single cabins. Got a mirror. Also, there's a bit of an area up here where you can store stuff. So I've stuck my bag up there, and there's a pillow and so on. I think they play sometimes music on these channels, and channel 1's normally full commentary, and you can change the volume. So I think that's everything. Welcome aboard, and let's hope it's a fantastic trip. Our section of the train departs at 3 p.m, but the third and final section of the train is still boarding. A crew member comes through to introduce themselves, answer any questions about the cabin, and to explain the location of the lounge and dining cars as well as other amenities. It's interesting to overhear other passengers' comments. One passenger is disappointed there's no Wi-Fi in the cabins, while another is surprised by the compact size of the cabins. They are snug, but I find them to be very well designed and comfortable. We've been connected to the section of train on platform 2, which boarded first. So we're now underway and passing through Sydney's inner western suburbs. Let's go check out the lounge car. Thought we'd take a quick look at one of the toilets. There's 2 toilets in this single carriage, whereas the twin berths have en suites. So here's the toilet and hand dryer. Pretty simple. In every car, in all Gold class, there's one of these little areas where you can get filtered drinking water, hot and cold, and you can make your own tea and coffee anytime. There's milk, and they've gone back to paper cups, it looks like. Pretty sure they used to have proper porcelain cups here. There are 3 self-contained Gold class sections on today's train, each with their own lounge and dining cars. I believe we have to walk through 3 Gold twin carriages to get to the lounge, and then after the lounge is the dining car, but that's not open until dinner time, which for me is 6 p.m. There are 9 cabins in each twin Gold carriage, accommodating up to 18 passengers. So the train's essentially broken up into sections, each with I think up to 4 sleeping cars, 1 lounge and 1 dining car, different in platinum. So we're now coming up to the lounge car, which I believe is very busy, very popular place to go now we're underway. This is where you'll meet some of your fellow travellers and can indulge in a cheeky beverage or a barista-made coffee. There's lots of people heading home as we approach the afternoon peak. We come to a stop in Clyde Yard, where the 3rd and final section of the train that was on platform 3 is connected to the front of our train. It's done here to avoid clogging up Central Station Yard with shunting movements. So now we have one long consist ready for the trip west.
My name's Cameron, I'm your journey manager here on board, and again on behalf of the rest of our team, it gives me great pleasure indeed to welcome you on board today's journey.
We have to wait for a train path onto the busy Sydney network. Here's a closer look at our route to Adelaide. The onboard temperature is set to 22 degrees Celsius. There's a recorded announcement about the train's history.
The First World War prompted the construction of the East-West Railway, and it was finally completed in 1917. However, a passenger wanting to travel between Sydney and Perth had to be prepared to change trains at least half a dozen times to reach their destination, because each section of the track was built with a different gauge or width. It wasn't until 1970 that the rail line was standardised. The Indian Pacific was the first train to make the full, unbroken journey from Australia's east coast to west on the 23rd of February 1970.
The Nepean marks the end of Western Sydney and the start of the Blue Mountains. These sandstone cuttings mark the ascent of the main Western Railway over the Great Dividing Range. We'll pass through Katoomba, home to the Three Sisters. After conquering the Great Dividing Range, we'll reach Bathurst in the central west. I think it's time for a pre-dinner drink. All beverages are included in the fare. I like to start with bubbles. We follow the Great Western Highway, which links Sydney and Bathurst. For a closer look at this route, check out my video about the XBT to Dubbo. It's dinner time. Meals are served in the Queen Adelaide restaurant. The crew will seat you with other passengers. Here's a quick look at the menu. We start with these savoury tarts. I choose the chicken as my entree. The swordfish for main. Many people take this train to celebrate a special occasion. There are 3 birthdays in the dining car tonight.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Hooray!
I finish with the apple tart. We've now traversed the Blue Mountains, including the highest point on our entire journey at 1,092 metres, just before our descent to Lithgow. Lithgow is the terminus for electrified trains from Sydney. We're now on the central tablelands. A roving musician performs in the lounge cars. His name is easy to remember. It's Adam.
You can tell everybody.
So, just finished dinner and the staff have made my bed. I've got some slippers here, perfect for when you need to go to the toilet during the night or to shower tomorrow morning. You've got a tour ticket here which indicates which off-train experience you're doing, and a chocolate. Perfect. So here's what the room looks like with the bed made up. It's quite intimate, but you can still get into the room, no issues. There's still space to sort of move around a little bit and get yourself organised. Bathurst is Australia's oldest inland European settlement. The carriages with the long black windows are platinum class cars. The railway station here was built in 1876 and is heritage listed. And now it's time for bed. Seems pretty comfortable, so I guess the only thing to say is good night. Some sections of track west of Parks are extremely rough.
Good morning. It's very early, but it's been pretty hard to sleep, to be honest. As you can see, my hair's a bit of a mess. It's time for a shower.
We'll take a closer look at the shower later.
It always feels much better after a shower, and it's nice to have a full-size shower, unlike those in the gold twin rooms.
It's still quiet in the lounge. The lounge has Wi-Fi, although it uses the Telstra mobile network, so won't work in remote areas. There's a 500 megabyte daily limit. A good thing about being up so early is getting to see the sunrise. Overnight, we've travelled to the far west of New South Wales. You might notice how brown the land has become on the satellite image. We're not far from the outback town of Broken Hill. Although Broken Hill is in New South Wales, it's closer to Adelaide than Sydney, so follows Central Standard Time. This means our clocks go back 30 minutes. A key reason for this is that the railway reached Broken Hill from Adelaide in 1888. Whereas the line from Sydney to Broken Hill wasn't completed until almost 40 years later, in 1927. We get a view of our locos on this curve. Here's today's schedule. Or it would be if we were on time. More on that shortly. Our train is scheduled to spend just under 2 hours in Broken Hill, where we have a choice of one of these 5 off-train experiences. I'm going for option 1 to learn more about the town's history. Broken Hill is Australia's oldest mining town still in operation. The memorial celebrates the life and work of more than 800 miners who lost their lives here. But then we received this news.
Unfortunately, been unable to make up any of our time overnight, and the information that we've received from our drivers this morning is that our estimated time of arrival into Broken Hill is now 7:30 this morning. In light of this new estimated time of arrival, and to ensure that the rest of our planned itinerary for your journey sees as little impact as possible, it's with regret that we've made the very difficult decision to cancel all of our off-train experiences this morning. The decision has certainly not been made lightly, and I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, my team and I share your disappointment in doing so. Should there be no further changes to our estimated time of arrival this morning into Broken Hill, we will be able to open our doors in your respective Outback Explorer lounge cars or Platinum Club carriages, should you wish to get some fresh air and stretch your legs across the platform in Broken Hill. We will ask that you return back on board the Indian Pacific by 8 o'clock this morning, and as such we'll ask you please don't wander too far from the platform. You'll hear a train horn sounded by the locomotive drivers to indicate when it is time to reboard.
Explorer Charles Sturt saw and named the Barrier Ranges, referring to a broken hill in his diary. Ironically, the hill that gave the town its name has been mined away. Broken Hill's ore deposit formed about 1.7 billion years ago and has proved to be one of the world's largest silver, lead and zinc mineral deposits. The railway station is located between the town and old mining sites.
Now 13 minutes past 7 here this morning, and drivers are just pulling onto the front portion of the platform here in Broken Hill. So we have made up a little bit of time over the past 45 minutes or so.
Here's another look at the Queen Adelaide restaurant, where some passengers are having breakfast.
Oh, come on through.
As we're at the back of the train, we need to walk through a few carriages to reach the platform. This carriage contains the kitchen.
Thank you.
This is one of the Platinum Club carriages. You can see it has a more modern feel than Gold Class. Half the carriage is for dining and the other half is a lounge area, as there are a lot fewer passengers in Platinum.
Hello.
We pass through a Platinum sleeper. The cabins here have windows on both sides. The Platinum cars have Nespresso pod machines in the self-service area. Another Platinum lounge. We make it outside. The crew take note of your cabin number so they can check all passengers who hop off, hop on again.
We're now in the outback city of Broken Hill, also known as the Silver City because of its mining history. We're closer to Adelaide than Sydney, so although we're still in New South Wales, we're on South Australian time.
You get a sense of just how long our train is here. For many decades, at least 3 changes of train were required if travelling from Sydney to Perth.
In the early days, the different states could not agree on a common rail gauge. Each built up its own rail system independently, and so created the break of gauge problem. In the west, the Northern Territory, in Queensland, Tasmania, and in part of South Australia, a 3 feet 6 inch gauge was built. In Victoria and in another part of South Australia, 5 feet 3, while New South Wales decided on 4 feet 8.5. This is also used by the Commonwealth Railways for the Trans-Australia line, and it is the national gauge which will link all mainland capitals by 1967.
Until 1970, you'd need to change from standard gauge to narrow gauge here, back onto standard gauge in Port Pirie, and then change again in Kalgoorlie to a narrow gauge train for the final stretch into Perth. Gauge conversion projects fix this, enabling the introduction of the Indian Pacific. Many passengers grab a pic with local drag queen Shalita Buffet. Get it? She would have led a walking tour if we'd arrived earlier. Some of the scenes from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert were filmed in Broken Hill. The railway station dates from 1957 and is heritage listed. Broken Hill was served by Australia's first air-conditioned train, the Silver City Comet, introduced in 1937. Back on board and it's time for breakfast. I've gone for the full breakfast with scrambled eggs. You also get a choice of fresh juices and toast. My lunch sitting is changed from 11:45am to 12:15pm to give priority to people on the Barossa Valley Wine Tour. They'll hop off the train earlier than the rest of us. Although the Indian Pacific makes the trip across Australia once a week, freight trains ply this route far more frequently. This freight train from Perth is en route to Sydney.
now that it's daytime, I thought we might as well have a proper look at the shower facilities. So at this end of the carriage, there are 2 showers. It's a full-size bathroom, so there's a lot more space than if you have a twin cabin with an ensuite. So you can see there's a basin here with soap and a mirror. And then in here you'll find the shower. As you can see, it's a full-size shower. Having used it, the shower has full, decent pressure. It's really good. There is a call button in here if anyone gets stuck. Shower rooms also feature a toilet. You get provided a floor mat to put down here, and there's a hand dryer just like in the toilets. Well, that's breakfast out the way, and I'm back in my cabin, which is back in day mode as a seat. We've crossed the border into South Australia, heading towards Peterborough, which is in South Australia's mid-north.
5 minutes now from passing through the township of Peterborough, which was once a thriving rail town. Peterborough operated a heritage steam railway from Peterborough to Swan between 1977 and 2002, which was run by the non-for-profit Steamtown Peterborough Railway Preservation Society. This was a narrow gauge route. Peterborough was South Australia's busiest regional rail hub. The Steamtown Heritage Rail Centre celebrates the rich history of Peterborough as a major railway centre with locomotives and rolling stock on display. A reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that we are looking still at an on-time arrival into the Adelaide Parklands terminal this afternoon between 3 o'clock and 3:15. And for those of you who have selected to do the Barossa Valley experience today, we'll be stopping at a little rail siding in the township of Two Wells, and it is from there we'll ask you to disembark at the Indian Pacific this afternoon to be taken away by a coach to the wonderful experience we have planned for you today. You'll be then returned to the train later on this evening. It's around 9 o'clock this evening, so please make sure that you have taken with you everything that you might need, including your Indian Pacific lanyard with your excursion ticket attached to that. Looking at a top today of 25 degrees, and it will be about 18 or 19 degrees by the time you return to the terminal in Adelaide this evening.
And here's Steamtown Heritage Rail Centre, which the train manager mentioned. At the heart of the town's locomotive department was this triple gauge turntable and roundhouse. At one point, it was home to a stable of about 40 steam locomotives. Peterborough was originally called Petersburg. That changed in 1918 when the government eliminated town names of German origin. There are plenty of wind turbines in this part of the world. Jamestown is home to about 1,500 people. Soon after, we catch glimpses of old Gladstone Gaol, which opened in 1881 and closed in 1975. It's now a tourist attraction. This train is being loaded with grain. On the outskirts of Crystal Brook, we reach a major rail triangle. This line heads northwest to Port Augusta and on to Perth. Until 1986, passengers for Adelaide would need to change onto a broad gauge train in Port Pirie. In 1980, the line between Port Pirie and Adelaide was standardised. This allowed the Indian Pacific to travel down into Adelaide as part of its east-west route. It added 390 kilometres to the journey. Lunchtime. Starting with lemon myrtle bread rolls. I've chosen the ploughman's plate as my main. And ice cream for dessert. Shortly after lunch, we pull into the siding in Two Wells, where passengers visiting Seppeltsfield wines disembark to board a coach to the Barossa Valley. A freight train passes us in the loop. This train features double-stacked containers, which can be used on trains to Perth because there are no tunnels. I find this letter in my cabin apologising for the cancelled off-train excursions in Broken Hill and advising I'll receive a $150 reimbursement.
So we're now travelling through Adelaide's outer northern suburbs, heading towards Adelaide Parklands Terminal in Keswick. There, we'll hop off the train and join one of the off-train experiences. These are all 5.5 hour trips that include dinner, and options include McLaren Vale, Harndorf, the Central Market After Dark and the South Australian Museum. Because I'm from Adelaide, I've been to all these places. So the one I've chosen is the Central Market After Dark because it includes an exclusive sit-down dinner when the market is closed, which is something you don't even get to do as a local.
Long-distance trains use Adelaide Parklands Terminal in Keswick, which is about 3 kilometres from the city centre. Because of the train's length, the consist is divided into 2 sections. Our section is brought into platform 2. This is the only station in the world where passengers can board trains on both north, south and east-west transcontinental routes, with the GAN travelling from Adelaide to Darwin. We're directed to a coach based on which tour we've chosen. A few minutes later, we arrive at the Central Market, where we're taken on a guided tour. It's one of the oldest markets in Australia, dating from 1869. The market sells fruit and vegetables, freshly baked goods, meat and poultry, pretty much anything you could want. All up, there are more than 70 stalls. After time to wander, the market closes, but we're invited inside for dinner. This starts with a cheese tasting with paired wines. Here's the menu. There's also live music. After dinner, we're taken back to the railway station, though the coach driver lets us know there is some kind of delay. Some passengers join the westbound service here. They begin with a welcome dinner in the terminal. Currently, only one half of the train is here. We're advised that a broken rail in the yard has caused a delay.
Ladies and gentlemen, all persons on platform 1, stand very clear behind the white line for your own safety and the train.
Boarding begins just before 10 p.m.
Thank you.
Back to my cabin, where my bed has been made. A little while later, our section of the train is pulled forward before being pushed back onto the section of train still on platform 1. And this is when something unusual happens. Rather than heading north as expected, the train heads south on the interstate line to Melbourne. The reason for this is to avoid the broken rail where the track rejoins the main line. So after pushing back far enough, we pull forward on the freight lines that bypass the terminal. For a train nerd like me, it's quite exciting to travel on a section of track that passenger trains almost never use.
So we're finally underway again after a bit of a delay here in Adelaide. We're just passing through the northern suburbs, and ultimately we're now, I think, about an hour and 20 minutes behind schedule. Hopefully they can make some of that time up overnight and tomorrow so we don't miss any more off-train excursions like we did in Broken Hill today. So without further ado, I'll say goodnight. Last night I got something of a better sleep. I think this might partly be due to the better tracks along this section compared to between Sydney and Broken Hill, although the crew also say that the first night is often the hardest, whereas on the second night you're getting more used to the noises and the movement of the train, so sleep does come easier. So now we're on our way towards Cook on the Nullarbor. I've had a shower and I'm going to head to the lounge car for a coffee, and then breakfast is being served from 6:30, which is now. So breakfast is available anytime between 6:30am and 8:30am. My room is obviously still in bed mode, as you can see. I'll put this little sign up when I leave so the crew know they can turn it into the day mode or the seat. As you can see, there's a little bit of space here, but it is a little bit cramped when you're moving around while the bed is down, but still manageable. Yes, so today we'll be heading towards Cook, which is a refuelling and rewatering stop, I think, and then on to Rawlinna, where we're meant to have dinner. Hopefully we've made up some time overnight, but I'm not sure yet. There'll be an announcement about that later.
We're now on the Trans-Australian Railway. The Trans-Australian Railway opened in 1917 and is the only rail corridor linking Western Australia with the eastern states. At the peak of construction, up to 4 kilometres of track was laid on the Trans-Australian Railway each day. In total, the Trans-Australian line is about 1,693 kilometres long. It was originally owned and operated by the Commonwealth Railways. Kicking breakfast off with apple juice. And muesli to start. I choose the smoked ham frittata as my main. Tarcoola is where the line to Alice Springs and Darwin diverges from the Trans-Australian Railway. We still have close to 2,000 kilometres to travel before we'll reach Perth.
Current time, which is of course 17 minutes past 9, as we have facilitated a time change yesterday evening, and are currently running on what we call train time. If you are looking to change your time still on a smartphone, it is running on a Tokyo time, and we do expect to be arriving into Cook at 20 minutes past 1 this afternoon, and we'll have approximately 30 minutes to explore the historic rail township of Cook.
We pass multiple goods loops, which can accommodate freight trains up to 1,800 metres long. When this railway opened, railway workers lived at settlements along the route to maintain the line and the trains. A weekly train, called the Tea and Sugar, was the sole source of provisions to these settlements.
The train is the village store, the bank, and the health centre for the rail workers and others living along the 1,100-mile track between Port Augusta and Kalgoorlie. The Tea and Sugar makes 50 stops on its weekly run, and for the housewives at Pimba, it's a welcome visitor. For besides household needs, it brings a welfare car with a doctor and nurse, polio immunisation, and chest X-ray surveys.
As the track was relayed with concrete sleepers and welded rail, requiring less maintenance, and newer, more reliable diesel locomotives were introduced, the Tea and Sugar became redundant and was withdrawn in 1996. There's a moving map in the lounge car so passengers can keep track of the train's progress. The wedge-tailed eagle is the emblem of the Indian Pacific. It's Australia's largest bird of prey with a wingspan of up to 2.8 metres. This symbolises a journey spanning the continent. You get a sense of how remote we are on this section of track. Nothing but scrub as far as the eye can see. Take note of this curved track. It's the last curve we'll see for a long time. Hard to believe it's lunch already, starting with these pumpkin bread rolls. For the main, I try the camel curry. Camels were imported from India and Afghanistan from the 1840s to help explore Australia's inland. They've since flourished in the desert and are considered pests. It's estimated there's more than 1 million feral camels in Australia. I choose ice cream for dessert. Do you notice anything peculiar about this view? There are no trees. The name Nullarbor is derived from Latin and means no trees. It's the world's largest single exposure of limestone bedrock, covering an area of about 200,000 square kilometres, or roughly the size of Great Britain. We're now on the longest straight section of track in the world, 478 kilometres long. The straight track begins just past Old Deer and continues across the border with Western Australia, ending about halfway between Forest and Rawlinna. We're now pulling into Cook. The diesel locos are refuelled here and the carriages topped up with water. The Indian Pacific is only being hauled by a single loco since Adelaide because there are no significant gradients to climb. You can see a couple of spare locomotives are kept here in case of breakdowns. I believe there are 6 NR locos carrying the Indian Pacific livery, but today we have one in standard Pacific national colours. We have about 30 minutes to explore this semi-abandoned settlement. Cook was once a settlement of about 40 people, with a hospital, basketball court, school and a swimming pool. The reduction of railway operations at the town resulted in its virtual desertion, and it now has a permanent population of 4. There's overnight accommodation here for train crews. That's our signal to reboard.
So as you can see, we're still traversing the Nullarbor Plain on the longest straight section of railway in the world. Because we're running late, we won't be having dinner under the stars in Rawlinna off the train. So we'll alight in Rawlinna for a briefer stop with a musician playing beneath the stars. So it should still be something special. The train temperature is meant to be fixed, I think, at 22 degrees Celsius, but it does seem to vary. And so because of that, let's get changed. And just like that, we're ready for dinner. We're now travelling through Forest.
Today, the Nullarbor bears little resemblance to its vibrant past. Until about 14 million years ago, it was a shallow seabed. Welcome to Western Australia.
Your evening meal on board the Indian Pacific will be a lovely roast meal and served in your Queen Adelaide restaurant, so Platinum Club lounges between 6 o'clock this evening and 8 o'clock. This will work rather similarly to our lunch on board today, ladies and gentlemen, in that please make yourselves known to your respective guest experience managers or platinum hosts when you are filling a package between those times. They'll be able to facilitate a table in your respective dining areas as soon as one does become available. Following your evening meal on board, ladies and gentlemen, we are planning to be able to experience some live entertainment from Peter, our onboard musician. And we do hope to be able to do so under the stars after we have arrived into Rawlinna this evening.
As promised, we're served a lamb roast with sausage, potato salad, coleslaw and quinoa salad. The choice of meat is because Rawlinna is home to one of Australia's biggest sheep stations, with up to 65,000 merino sheep. I can't resist the chocolate mousse for dessert. Having dinner on the train but drinks around a bonfire in Rawlinna is similar to the service during winter. The cold overnight temperatures at that time of year means it's too cold to eat off the train. Rawlinna Sheep Station is roughly the same size as Sydney. A muster can take up to 100 kilometres to get the sheep to a shearing shed using motorbikes and aircraft.
We're at Rawlinna, where we're having drinks under the stars with music. Unfortunately, it seems like there's clouds, so we can't see many stars tonight. Cheers.
The crew is happy to take photos for you. It's the early hours again, and I've woken in the Goldfields city of Kalgoorlie. Until East Perth Station opened in 1970, this was the longest platform in Western Australia. That was to allow passengers to switch from the standard gauge Trans-Australian onto a narrow gauge train to Perth. Of course, these days, no change is required. You can catch the daily Prospector train between Perth and Kalgoorlie. It takes about 7 hours to cover the 650 kilometre journey. Kalgoorlie is home to one of Australia's largest open cut gold mines, the Super Pit.
Good morning and welcome aboard the fourth and final day aboard the Indian Pacific. We're now west of Kalgoorlie on the Eastern Goldfields Railway and heading towards the Avon Valley and Perth. It's definitely true that the longer you sleep on the train, the more accustomed you become to it, so sleep becomes a little bit easier. Despite all the noises and the movement, you start getting used to it, so that's a good thing. Time for a shower.
We are currently situated Lake Julia. You will see a larger salt lake located to the left-hand side direction of travel. As we do have some freight train crosses through this area, these are scheduled into our timetable and we are currently running to schedule. Currently for our Platinum and Gold service areas, we do have breakfast available. When you are ready, do make your way through to your Outback Explorer lounge cars or Platinum lounges and see your hosts and guest experience managers who will take you through when seating is available.
Our final breakfast on board. I'm starting with the chai bircher. And the croque madame for main course, served with tea and apple and blackcurrant juice. We stop in the wheatbelt town of Merredin, roughly halfway between Kalgoorlie and Perth, to change drivers for the final time. We're now close to Merredin, famous for a 6.5 magnitude earthquake in 1968. The quake was felt up to 700 kilometres away and badly damaged the town, injured dozens of people and buckled the railway line. The crew encourage us to fill out the feedback form. I also pick up a branded bottle of water to add to my collection. It must seem like all we do is eat on this train, but it is a few hours later. The jewfish on the menu has been replaced by whiting, which is what I go for. And of course there are bread rolls and your choice of wine. I hope you didn't think I'd chosen the fruit platter. This is my dessert, the brownie. After all, this is our last meal and I'm a chocolate fiend. Northam is a major railway junction and serves as the commercial centre for much of the Western Wheatbelt. Another chance to see the length of our train on these curves. In this final part of our journey, we'll travel down the Avon Valley, one of the most scenic parts of the trip, although because we're on the tail end of summer, it's drier than usual. We follow the Avon River, which will eventually join the Swan River. The track here is dual gauge, as Western Australia mostly uses narrow gauge. We reach the Swan Valley, dotted with vineyards, on our approach to Perth. Let's have a quick chat with the train manager.
My name's Cameron, I'm a journey manager on the Indian Pacific this week, but have certainly done a lot of other travel on the rest of our trains as well. About 240 guests, and I've got 52 staff this week. It's a spectacular transcontinental journey. We don't have that anywhere else. Very few other places in the world. The difference between the landscapes we see is quite incredible and diverse. From snow in the Blue Mountains, perhaps, to a lightning storm on the Nullarbor, it gets pretty exciting. The red hills in and around Barton always been my favourite part of this particular journey.
yeah, it's beautiful.
It's slightly too long for the platform here in the East Perth Rail Terminal. Your attendants will come through and collect your cabin bags from you, and these will be...
Now rolling through Perth's eastern suburbs on the way to East Perth Terminal. It's been a fantastic journey, travelling right across Australia, getting an understanding of the scale of this country and just how big it is. Overall, it's been a really enjoyable journey. There's been a few disappointments just in terms of having to cancel the off-train experiences in Broken Hill and not having the dinner in Rawlinna, but it was still enjoyable overall. Once you get used to sleeping on the train, things improve. So it's good that you have sort of 3 nights, because by the second and third night, you're sort of getting a lot more sleep than you are on the first night. The service on board is excellent, and all the staff can't do enough to help you. They're incredibly friendly. Yeah, they just go above and beyond. I'd give particular credit to the experience manager in this section of the train, Dylan, who was outstanding. He couldn't help enough in any way, shape or form, and he got to know all the passengers' names, really incredible. So yeah, just really went above and beyond and delivered a great service. Yeah, all the food's been amazing. The service has been great. You know, it's been a really comfortable, enjoyable, relaxing trip. So I would recommend it.
East Perth Terminal is about 2.5 kilometres from the city centre, as this is where the standard gauge line ends. You may be wondering how much all this costs. A Gold Class single cabin from Sydney to Perth, purchased 6 months in advance, starts at $2,345 Australian dollars, but the price varies based on the season. It's not cheap, but it's important to remember the fare includes all of your meals, beverages, off-train excursions and accommodation. You shouldn't need to spend any money while on board. Travelling in the opposite direction is marginally cheaper. Welcome to Perth. Perth is Australia's 4th most populous city. With Adelaide more than 2,000 kilometres away, Perth is one of the world's most isolated capital cities. One of these Trans-Perth narrow gauge trains will take us into the CBD. Because our train is so long, we'll have to head back through a few carriages to be able to exit onto the platform. This gives us an opportunity to check out some of the other cabins. This is a Gold Twin cabin, the most popular option. And here's a cabin with both beds still down. I guess some people wanted a Saturday sleep in. Here's a last look at our train before we hop on board a Trans-Perth suburban train. The CBD is about 7 minutes away. But I'm staying on the train towards Fremantle.
Seeing as we started our trip on the Pacific Ocean at Bondi Beach, it seemed fitting that we complete the journey by making the trip to the Indian Ocean here at North Fremantle, completing the coast-to-coast journey on the Indian Pacific. I hope you've enjoyed coming with me.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Hope to see you then!